Hello and welcome to the last wellness wander of the year. You can see from my hat and also from the boat full of parcels behind me that we're really getting into the festive spirit here in the Botanic Garden. So this week's wander will be taking in some of the foliage highlights and also some of the little treats that Santa's elves have been sneaking into the garden over the last few weeks. No seasonal wander around the garden would be complete without taking in the common holly. So this is a British native which also occurs throughout Europe. You can see here these beautiful glossy berries against the shiny, brilliant, almost leathery but very, very prickly foliage here. And the fruits of this tree are very, very popular with birds, providing a good source of nutrients for them. But as you look further into the top of the canopy, you can see there are no berries, and the birds definitely start scavenging on the higher limits of the holly bush and leave these lower berries to very much later in the year. And I'm now up here in the new Pinetum, where you can see an array of wonderful coniferous species. This is a seldom visited corner of the garden, but it really does show a great diversity of pines and conifers from around the world. Many distinct in either the shapes and forms of their cones or in their needles and their habit. But the one I really wanted to show you today is this one, the Nordmann fir, Abies nordmanniana, which comes from Turkey, Iran and the Caucasus. And here it's towering above me, probably to 10 meters or so, and has these wonderful stubby needles and beautiful habit and form. And this is a tree that many of us are familiar with as one of our Christmas trees. Beautiful here when you look closely at the needles, whose backs have a silvery tinge. And although we can't really see cones clearly at these lower levels, they're definitely there up in the top of this wonderful tree. And we've now jumped across to the systematic beds for another seasonal botanical highlight. So in the distance, in the centre of this shot, you can see the great globes of mistletoe hanging from some of the trees on our western boundary. And more cones or conifers in the distance along the main walk. But here beside me, a fantastic example of mistletoe at eye level. So this is a species from the temperate northern hemisphere. It's one of many species of mistletoe that occur throughout the world. This one is Viscum album, so the native mistletoe, which you hear so much about, particularly in association with apple orchards. But it will host, or is hosted, on a great variety of trees, including poplars, Davidia, Sorbus and Acer. And you can see here these extraordinary limey coloured leaves which are in pairs and are heavily veined, and sitting in the leaf axils these wonderful translucent berries, which is such a part of our tradition and culture here in this country, with mistletoe being used to ward off evil spirits but also to symbolise fertility, hence it being hung in our homes at Christmas time. But wonderful just to see it in its full glory on this young small malus or crabapple tree. We're now going to head over just across from the systematic beds to take in another winter highlight from the garden. And you can see much work has been going on the beds here over winter to prepare them for next summer. So beautifully dug beds, we've been mulching areas, and lovely as well to have a bit of sun just taking out and picking up my shadow and silhouette here. But we're now heading to look at another plant that has a very clear association with winter for us, and that popular item of carols in our history. So this is Hedera helix, or the common ivy, here scrambling up on a host tree, which we don't always encourage, but in certain situations we do, as it makes a great habitat for all sorts of birds and invertebrates particularly. And although now in full fruit, when in flower, this really does provide a great source of food for bees in the garden in winter. And I mentioned earlier other seasonal highlights. I've just spotted here the beautiful fruits, which almost glisten, of the strawberry tree Arbutus unido, which occurs in the Mediterranean, and you will also see naturalised in Ireland. And these are beautiful and really deserve the common name strawberry tree for these beautiful globose scarlet fruits. And I mentioned that the elves have been wreaking havoc almost here in the garden. They've been quite playful and mischievous, and here is just one of the items that they delivered to us as a surprise last month. Can you tell what it is? Here we are. Dear Santa, I hope it's woolly socks. And these features have brought a smile to the faces of many of our visitors, young and old. And as we head from the 19th century garden into the 20th century garden, we can see more features that Santa's elves have been helping us out with. So hanging above the path, you can see Santa's washing line. But before we get right up to that, I'm just going to introduce you to the tallest tree in the garden, and this is Ostrya carpinifolia, which you can see here clothed in an array of garden and workshop tools. They really have been getting up to much mischief here in the garden. And passing beneath Santa's washing line into our birch collection, which is always a glory at this time of year, when the stems of the birch trees are exposed to their full extent by the lack of leaves on the trees. But even here you can see there's been a bit of merriment with bows adorning some of these beautiful white stem trees. And even baubles appearing almost overnight to take visitors by surprise. And from the bowed birches, we're going to head across to the dry garden. But first of all, just going to admire the wonderful structural seed heads of Dipsacus phelonum, or the teasel, which is just beautiful, particularly if you can catch it on a glorious hoar-frosty morning, but so architectural here in the garden. But heading into the dry garden, wanted to come and admire another botanical highlight of the season. So this time, Mahonia media winter sun, which is emitting such a strong fragrance. And if you look, you may well spot an odd bee here amongst the flowers, hunting down food. It's a beautiful plant with these extraordinarily spiny leaves and really fissured, almost cork-like bark here. But really bringing seasonal colour to the dry garden in December. But as we turn, you'll also see once again the elves have had a hand here in the dry garden. So amongst the plantings, and particularly beneath the pergola, this glorious light again, you'll see more Christmas cheer. This time delivered in a traditional manner of Christmas trees, baubles, lights and tinsel. Just surprising many of our visitors as they wander through the garden, and really bringing cheer even on the dowdiest of winter days. And to finish this week's Wellness Wander, I thought I'd bring you for a quick fix of winter garden glory. It really is still packing a punch, particularly in this gorgeous sunlight today. Just looking bountiful and luxurious. But what I really wanted to show you to finish this wander is this tiny, small snowdrop. Here, planted at the front of the border in the winter garden. And this is Galanthus plicatus 3 ships, which is getting ready to sail through on Christmas Day. I hope you've enjoyed joining me for this festive wellness wander, and that, as so many of our visitors, it's also brought a smile to your faces too. We will be back in the new year for more wellness wonders, but in the meantime, I wish you a very happy Christmas and New Year, and look forward to welcoming you back in a few weeks. Thank you and goodbye.